alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I want to play a game. Groovy.
Hello and welcome to the Sounds from the Grave podcast. My name is Yusuf.
And my name is Vanya.
And welcome to Prime Time, bitch.
And I would like to give a really big shout out to Cece for being the winner of our giveaway and also giving us this awesome quote to use for our podcast. So thank you so much, Cece. She's
Yes.
also a part of the Scream Queen podcast.
Yes,
So
the
you
Scream
guys
Queens.
should-
And honestly, it's turning into one of my favorite podcasts right now. I love their banter. I love just what they talk about. So definitely give them a listen if you haven't yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So today it's going to be a mixture of two things right now. Right now we are going to do a just basically covering some new things that are happening in the HHN community, things that has happened, and also we're doing our second part for our true horror stories series, you would like to call it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only just a 2-part series for right now. Maybe later on I might do some more with it. But for right now, I think I like to keep it as a 2-parter.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah, so yeah, we're going to be talking about a couple things, like Vanya said, in the HHN community, such as HHN at home, a couple of things that were going on with that. We're going to talk about the little giveaway that we were doing, official house announcements, Steve Cream, and so much more.
Yeah, I mean, the best part is always Steve Cream, but hey, we'll explain that story later if
Yes, we
you
will.
have not heard. So we're going to talk about HHN at home. I had so much fun during HHN at home. It was actually really amazing for something that was like not not actually happening, because it was, but it was just like one of those things where you always had to be on Twitter, you always had to be on Discord, but you're always interacting with people. So it was like really cool to like interact with other content creators.
I was so sad that I couldn't really participate as much as I wanted to, because that specific day I just happened to be at work, so I was at work, so I couldn't, just stop and check Discord or Twitter every 5 seconds. Otherwise, I would get fired, and I'm like, nah, I'm not about that right now. I'm broke.
That's fine. Well, at least you got to like stop in a couple of times.
Oh yeah,
during,
definitely.
on
Like I was,
Twitter, yeah.
yeah, I was definitely able to catch up on everything that was going on. So yeah, at least I wasn't heavily involved myself, but I was stalking the Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was on Twitter. Everybody was stalking it like crazy. But we all had an amazing time. So HHN at Home was a virtual event that was hosted by Horror Night Nightmares and other content creators such as the Rip Tour, HHN Crypt, HHN Rumors, HHN 365, Haunt Scene, Theme Park Bar, HHN Legacy, Freaks of HHN, TLEV Media, sorry if I said that wrong, guys, and so many more other creators. It was actually an amazing event, especially with all the things that were going on in the HHN community and its cancellation. But,
Yeah.
you know.
One of the things I will definitely say that I was very I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this. I just want to say how happy and proud I am to be part of this community, just because of the way that this was organized. It was super inclusive. I felt that everybody was given a chance to be a part of it, and it really showed how much of a tight knit community we are. How much we're essentially Horror Nights family, really.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about how our idea came about. Because at first I had actually asked Horror Night Nightmares if I could do a little giveaway myself. I just kind of felt a little bit like, I kind of want to do a little giveaway, like a little pre-event giveaway. So I was talking to them about it. So if you guys have not seen, I did a 2 eyeshadow palettes. It's the Classic Horror Edition by LA Splash. So I bought two of those and gave it to two lucky winners. And of course, I also talked about how me and Yusef here, uh, our podcast, also wanted to do a giveaway as well. So we did a Beetlejuice backpack. We did an wall clock.
Yeah.
And then we also did five Universal Monster pins for our lucky winners, and also little things here and there. So there was a lot of winners in this giveaway that we did.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun because the whole idea behind it was like, for all of you that listen on a regular basis, you know that I always start every episode off with a quote from a horror movie. So I thought, why not get our listeners and the people that follow us on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff, get them a chance to be involved with us and, give us some horror movie quotes to use for our future episodes. And the amount of responses we got was astounding. It was so much fun to go through them.
Yeah, so now that you guys know about it, just if we're going to be shouting out those winners every single time that we do use a quote, because
Yep.
there's going to be maybe close to maybe 10
I
that
think so,
we have
yeah.
chosen. So it was really fun to do this contest, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear all the quotes that those winners have actually given to us
Yeah,
to use.
for sure.
So, yes.
So another thing too that was really cool is that outside of HHN at Home itself, there were a couple of other events that were being hosted by several people, including the Pew 2, which we are working with them actually on our big DIY Horror Nights mega podcast. And we're really excited because they're really cool people and we love working with them. Other people that were involved here were Fear and Beer podcast.
I love you guys. I love them so much. I actually love their podcast, and they're like so much fun. Every time I listen to their, especially like the types of beers that they drink while talking about like things horror and like things horror nights, is just literally the best. I love them, and I love you guys. If you're listening to, sorry, I'm not trying to be creepy, but hey, like you guys are awesome. So.
And I didn't really know about them until you told me, or like I saw you post about them. And now that you mentioned that they talk about beers that they drink, I'm like, I'm definitely into that because I love beer. Not like
God.
as an alcoholic, just like like beer tasting and stuff like that.
That's I'm the borderline alcoholic, but let's not tell everybody that. But like I have been listening to them for a really long time, and they're awesome. So if you guys love beer and you guys like horror stuff, go check them out. They're awesome.
And yeah, definitely some of the other podcasters and just HHN community members that participated in that were Hunters Podcast, HHN Screams, Expedition Theme Park, Log Ride, Slasher Radio, Drew the Theme Park Dude, The Dead Girl, Joshua Malone, and there was a whole event that I think is still ongoing over on Roblox.
Well, they did an event preview during HHN at Home for the Monster Mash. Basically, I'm guessing they were previewing the events that is going on currently this weekend or this week of the Roblox HHN. So it's happening right now. It is September 17th, so it is actually now open for the VIP members, but it should be opening up officially to everybody on Friday, especially for those of you guys who don't know what's going on. But I will tell you guys in a bit. So many of you guys are wondering, what the fuck is Steam Cream? Let me tell you, in a lovely game of Quick Flash, after everybody was done watching Bride of Frankenstein, because we were also doing a watch along by watching Beetlejuice and Bride of Frankenstein for obvious reasons, because they were supposed to be IPs this year.
Yes.
They were given a opportunity to play Quick Flash with the HHN community. So the question was, what is the new Stranger Things drink? And apparently one of them came up with the answer, or I think they chose it. I wasn't really sure. I think one of them either created the answer or they chose it, and then everybody just kind of the audience member in Quiplash, you know, it like you can play as the audience member to see who gets the highest votes.
Yeah.
So the two options were the new drink is mouth breathers or Steve Cream. So, as much as I do like mouth breathers for obvious reasons, because it's a quote, but like Steve Cream though, like
Steve Cream is just, it's iconic at this point now.
so I was in that game and I just couldn't help but like wonder like what the fuck, and it just everything just escalated, and then after that every question had to do with Steam Cream, and it's just like why, like there was an answer that's like there was no right answer, the answer is always Steve Cream, like that's what it is. So like
I love the fact that it escalated to the point where it just turned into a meme. And at the time I wasn't aware what was going on because I was at work, so I didn't get to catch that until much later, where the hashtag was already trending and everything. But so I had to ask you what the whole Steve Cream thing was, and you sent me the link to it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god. And I completely just went down this whole rabbit hole about Steve Cream.
I mean, it's a great meme. I love it. And somebody went as far. I'm still trying to figure out who it is. Somebody.
They
went
made the
as
Steve
far-
Cream Twitter account. Yes.
The Twitter account.
Who is
who
that?
The fuck that is that? Like, no, like I have a couple of suspicions. I thought one of them was HHN Screams, but I don't think it's him. And
I really have no idea who it could be, honestly.
So like, I'm sorry if you're listening, HHN Screams, but like I suspected it was you, but then apparently this person surpassed their follower account in the other one. So I'm like, nah, it can't be him, so it had to be somebody else. I don't know. So whoever you are, you're really good at hiding yourself, but like, that's awesome. Keep up with the Steam Cream, and it's gonna be freaking amazing. So
Yeah.
the last thing we're gonna be mentioning is the wonderful, exciting news that we got yesterday, and it was fantastic.
Yes.
So, Universal Studios. Let's go back a little bit. HHN Orlando Twitter account was in a seance. Seance?
Yeah, they posted like this little like set of emojis that made it look like they were about to summon something on a seance, and of course everybody went crazy because they're like, "Oh, what's going on? What are they announcing? Something's happening."
So they officially announced the two houses that we have been suspecting for the longest time, and it was Bride of Frankenstein Lives, and also The Revenge of the Tooth Fairy.
Which, honestly, I'm very excited for. That sounds like something that would be terrifying.
I mean, like, if you have looked in past speculation maps that Horror Night Nightmares have put out, Tooth Fairy has been supposed to show up a couple of years, but they never, like, persevered the entire concept until now.
Yeah.
And now it's like one of those things where they finally, make it come true. I feel like this is going to be like their version of maybe Nightingales or Scarecrow, where it is going to be like that terrifying factor.
Could be.
Of giving an original and an IP at the same time.
Yeah. You know what? I'm kind of happy for that. Obviously we all know now at this point that we were going to have a Beetlejuice house. I'm kind of glad we're not getting it this year, just because I feel like it would be better during like a whole complete 100% HHN event.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't think we were going to get the Tooth Fairy house. I am one of those few people who did not think we were going to get the Tooth Fairy house or the Icons house. People are suspecting that 2 more houses are going to be opening up. I don't know how true that is.
Well, I think it just depends on, how this weekend goes.
Yeah,
Because depending on the
exactly.
crowds, depending on the safety measures. I mean, if they work, hopefully they do, and maybe we can get some more houses or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I was the only one that thought that it was going to be just Brides and Beetlejuice because of both of their appearances in the tribute store.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was just going to be those two. I never suspected the Tooth Fairy. I never suspected I mean, I thought Bride of Frankenstein, they were gonna go through with it anyway, because considering that it is their own original IP, they can do whatever the fuck they want with it, and it's just, you know, I feel like it felt natural to just go with Bride of Frankenstein,
Yeah.
but I also do like their new twist on Bride of Frankenstein, where she's wearing the lab coat. So we are assuming that the story is that she's bringing her mate back from the dead after he
Yeah.
just basically killed both him and her, and where there's the famous quote, "We belong dead." So it's also quoted in the Bride of Chucky movie, I think it was.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
it was also quoted because I love Bride of Chucky, so like, yay. So there's a lot going on this weekend, and I'm gonna be there all weekend,
Yeah, I will
and
be too, actually.
it's gonna be a freaking madhouse.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully Madhouse in this term, in the fun term, not Madhouse as in people are going all over the place in there and not following the social distancing and all that stuff. You know how it is.
Yeah. And we're also gonna have the first Steam Cream meetup this Saturday, and I'm
Yes.
excited.
Yep. Obviously I don't really actually have a lot of Steve related merchandise that I can wear, so I'm gonna be going as another Stranger Things character. And the ones of you that do follow me on my personal Twitter kind of already have an idea of what I'm gonna be doing.
Yes, he's gonna be Daddy Police.
A
Daddy
a
Police.
a.
Yeah, so wow, that was really cringy. I'm never gonna do that again. So the minute that they announced that we were allowed to wear costumes, and was super weird because Universal has never actually let their guests in with costumes, I believe, correct?
Yeah, not that I know of. I think it's just because of the whole, event coming back. They kind of just want to let people celebrate it their way and kind of go all out on it, just because we're not really able to do much.
This is kind of like Mickey's Not So Scary meets Fright Nights, except that it's a little bit scarier. What would you call that? I'm not too sure. Like
Mickey's.
everybody has been calling it Diet HHN, which I don't know how to feel about that title, honestly.
I kind of like the other one that I've seen is HHN Junior.
HHN Junior. Well, that makes sense.
See,
Well,
see when they call it like the Diet HHN, I just think of that scene in I think it's like Austin Powers, like the second Austin Powers, when Doctor Evil calls his son the Diet Coke of Evil.
oh jeez.
Like that's what it makes me think of.
Oh Christ. God. So I went to Spirit Halloween, and I went straight to the Stranger Things aisle, and I saw the wonderful Scoops Ahoy outfit for Steve, and I was like, I want it, so I'm going to try and attempt to get it. Of course, I'm too short, so I asked one of the associates if they can help me get it down. So he comes along and he grabs the costume for me, and then he laughs. You can hear him go like, Steve Cream, and I'm like, oh shit, like how do you know about that? And then we just were talking back and forth, and then he realized that he follows me on Twitter.
Oh wow.
The person is Hallowed Thrills. He works at the Spirit Halloween near me. So he helped me do the checkout. We were talking about how much fun we're gonna have this weekend, and how we all just want to do this really big meetup, even though it sucks because we're have to social distance as well. But hey, everybody should be quarantined, right? Like we can all be friends. But,
Yeah.
like, so I actually bought my Steve Harrington costume in the Scoops Ahoy. So you will be seeing me cavort around the park in a Scoops Ahoy outfit on Saturday, and then on Sunday I'm gonna do Lori from Trick or Treat.
Nice. That's awesome.
So there's a lot of exciting things happening this weekend.
For sure.
And a lot of things have been really exciting this week. So that's all the updates we have for you guys.
Actually, now that I think about it, I didn't really look too far into this in terms of the rules for costumes, but let's say I'm gonna wear a shirt that has like bloodstains on it. Do you think I'd be allowed to wear that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I was planning on doing for Sunday.
Yeah, because They said that there's no, like, you can't, like, cover up your entire face.
That's fine.
Of course,
Of course, I'm not gonna
props
be
and all
doing that.
shit. No, no helmets, that type deal. I know that there was somebody on Twitter that they did a Jack the Clown online, not costume, makeup. And then they asked Universal if it was okay, and they said no to him. So it's just that kind of term. So I can't wear my Chance cosplay, darn, but it's fine. I kind of don't want to sweat, honestly.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
All right, so
So yeah, I think that's what we have so far on current events on HHN. So I think we're about ready to move on to our next topic here,
yes.
which is the second part to our little series here on true horror stories. And so today we're going to have two more stories for you guys. And similar to our previous episode, we're going to tell you the story, give you a couple seconds there to try and guess what the story is. Or I'm sorry, what the film that took inspiration is. And we're going to talk about that story a little bit, and then we'll move on to our next story.
Sounds good.
Yep. So I'm going to start it off today. We're going to be talking about these weird, bizarre, unexplained deaths that plagued the U.S. in the 70s and 80s. But the story itself is going to mostly focus on these people in Laos are called the Hmong people. I think it's like Hmong. I can't. If I butcher that, I'm really sorry. But
We're not from there, so
yeah,
please forgive us.
it's a little bit tough to kind of say that because it's spelled Hmong. So I'm like, hopefully I don't butcher that too bad. But anyway, this is stuff that was happening during the Vietnam War, and during that war, the struggles and the battles began to kind of bleed over into other parts of Southeast Asia, including Laos and Cambodia, as a bunch of the communist forces in those areas were given resources and weapons to communist supporters in there. But in order to retaliate, the CIA began Project Momentum, which saw them arm and train a large amount of Hmong villagers from the mountains of Laos. Among the fighters were children, which is just really U.S. You had to do that. You had to make children soldiers. Like, yeesh.
We want your firstborn and all of your borns.
And all your Jason Bournes.
Oh,
I'm sorry. That was bad. But at first it was nothing too serious. They only, they send the Hmong on reconnaissance missions to gather info on like the communist activity in the areas. But of course, it eventually escalated into open combat, and the battles were like just brutal. They were nasty. They took like a massive toll on these people, and strangely enough, more Hmong people lost their lives than the 58,000 American soldiers that died in the Vietnam War.
you know what's crazy is that I actually recently saw Born on 4th of July, and it was based on the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
That shit was brutal. That war was brutal.
Yeah, that war, like, it makes a lot of sense as to why they'd make so many movies set during the Vietnam War, just because it's so visceral and like just
Gory as hell.
yeah, it's tough,
Yeah.
But after the end of the Vietnam War and the defeat of all the non-communist combatants in the areas, the Hmong general requested assistance from the CIA in order to evacuate the Hmong people from Laos. He did make arrangements to have the people of the Hmong people transplanted to Thailand. But the U.S. only sent 3 airplanes. They only evacuated about 3,500 Hmong people.
Wow.
And which is kind of shitty because the 3,500 people were people that the general himself had selected because he thought they were the most likely to be executed under the new communist regime. So he kind of just left the rest of the Hmong just to like kind of deal with it on their own. They were like, "Well, yeet, bye. You guys find a way out of this."
America, always so selfish.
Yeah.
But hey, nothing new there. Living the American dream, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But 40,000 of the Hmong people decided to travel to Thailand on foot. So they took their children and whatever little things that they had, and they just left. But unfortunately, many of them died before even getting to Thailand, just because of the treacherous journey. They also had to deal with communist supporters in the area that would just kill them, that would just hunt them down.
Dang.
Yeah, like the poor people, like the poor Hmong people, just they went through so much. They had to deal with so much hardship, and it's just terrible.
That's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
It is. It really is. But in 1975, the Laotian monarchy,
Laotian.
I think it's Laotian. Well, their monarchy was overthrown and was replaced with a communist state. And unfortunately, many of those Hmong people that never left, they just remained in Laos. They were captured and they were taken to internment camps, where they were forced to confess to crimes against the Communist Party, and were then placed into quote-unquote seminars in order to rid them of capitalist ideology. And for all intents and purposes, this was just labor camps. And most of the Hmong that were captured and taken there were worked to death, or they just died due to malnutrition.
Dang. No, why are we like this? Like,
Yeah.
why? That's fucked.
Yeah, like that's the kind of stuff that is scary to me, like the actual horrors of what human beings can do to others, to like themselves.
Yeah.
And
This is why we like fiction horror. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, honestly. But it is estimated that a total of 95,000 Hmong were killed from starvation, murder by communist soldiers, the journey to Thailand, and even when some of them did get to Thailand, at the checkpoints there, they would just get shot too, just because the people of Thailand just didn't want them there.
That's so. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know what? This is. I wonder what kind of movie this is, because this is very awful. But anyways.
Yeah. But it took them a while to get there, because it's by 1981 that 35 of the Hmong people that reached the refugee camps in Thailand, they were actually resettled in America, not an American.
America.
Yeah. America. But as you can imagine, there was a major just culture shock for these people, because they had a mostly agricultural lifestyle, so they were planting and cultivating crops and having to hunt for meat, and they went from that to 24-hour drive-through supermarkets, TV, movies, and a lot of them had never been exposed to that kind of stuff.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you have never.
Like,
And just imagine. I mean, it's like one of those movies where you expose somebody to like technology, and they're like, "What is this magical contraption?"
yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's kind of how it was for them. And not only that too, I can't imagine how overwhelming that must have been. Like, especially if you look at it backwards from our point of view, because we're used to that kind of stuff. We're used to McDonald's, we're used to Walmart and all that stuff. And then imagine having to just resettle in Laos or Vietnam, and places that don't really have a lot of those things. And you're like, this is so different. How do I cope with this type of thing?
Yeah.
So, like, wow, just crazy. So, for years, death and fear had ruled the lives of the Hmong people, and unfortunately, this nightmare would follow them to America, only with a different face. So, the main case of this that we're going to cover is that of a 47-year-old Hmong by the name of Yong Ling Thao. He had relocated to Portland, Oregon with his wife and his 8 children in July of 1980.
Oh, they got busy.
They got real busy. Listen, there's not a lot to do when you're walking in Thailand. I'm sorry, that was insensitive. I'm really sorry.
No,
That was bad.
No, unless you want to start that over, I don't know.
No, I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Anyway, less than a year later, tragedy struck the family when in January of 1981, Young Lang drifted off to sleep next to his wife. Normal night, nothing happens. He was watching TV, got tired, went to bed. but his wife suddenly woke up when she heard him struggling to breathe. But when she attempted to wake him up, she realized that he died.
Oh no.
Like
What
he
the
just
heck?
like he just died. And when they took his body to the medical examiner, when he saw the body, he actually got hit with a sense of deja vu because only 3 days earlier, a 29-year-old Hmong male had died in his sleep under very similar circumstances. And despite a large amount of tests, they couldn't find a cause of death.
Wow, that's really like
That's really
that sleep
scary.
paralysis, and your sleep paralysis demon is like, shh, just never wake up again. That's fine.
Go to sleep, bitch.
Exactly.
But soon after that, too, the medical examiner actually discovered another 2 cases of refugees from Laos dying in their sleep with no cause of death, and this happened less than 9 months apart. And what's really interesting, too, is that all of the cases were restricted to males, and they were all relatively young, and they just died in their sleep.
They were just sex deprived. That's fine. They needed women. That's all it was. No,
Well,
I'm
no, because
kidding.
this stuff
That's
was
really
happening in
awful.
America, yeah.
Oh,
And
well, that too.
and some of them had wives and stuff. So the medical examiner didn't really know what to do. He was kind of at a loss there, and he called other medical examiners in areas that had a large concentration of Hmong people or Laotian refugees to see if there was a pattern. And it turns out that in St. Paul, Minnesota, there were another 4 cases of Hmong men dying in their sleep. And not only that, the medical examiner found cases in Seattle, in Des Moines, and Orange County in California.
I mean, it sounds like another plague. I mean, whatever plague that happened in between like 1970s to 1980s, it's kind of like a plague of just people dying in their sleep. Which I mean, it could be worse. They could have basically died in an inhumane way where they came from, which really sucks. But I mean, hey, they died in their sleep. They died without knowing. So I mean, unless
Yeah.
the struggle for breath was painful, but hey, I mean,
Still, that's just awful that this happened to them.
yeah.
Um, but on February 17th of 1981, or 82, I think it was 81, another case of this was reported in Minneapolis. And with this case, there had been 13 documented deaths now. So, an epidemiologist by the name of Dr. Tom Prendergast, he became aware of the problem when several reporters and news outlets were contacting him, and they were asking him about cases where Hmong men had died under those circumstances. And when Prendergast delved further into the subject, he actually found another 20 confirmed cases. And he determined that about half of all Hmong deaths in the U.S. were due to this phenomenon. So let's say, you had like, obviously I'm just under exaggerating, I guess would be the word for it. Let's say you have, 100 Hmong, 50 of the Hmong males, or like half of the Hmong males were dying because of that. So that's insane.
Yeah.
But by September of 1981, over 35 cases had been reported. Yeah.
This sounds familiar. Aren't we living in
Yeah.
such times right now?
Exactly. Obviously, not
really-
as ours is a little bit more severe, but the stuff it's still things that are happening.
Yeah.
But there were several different theories that were put forth to try to explain what was going on. One of those tried to explain that it was a mixture of the culture shock from moving to America and a lot of the wartime anxiety had proved to be too much for some of the Hmong people or the Hmong men, and their bodies they just gave up. Their bodies just gave out. And another theory that was posted around that time was that during wartime, during those, the battles and the combat, they might have been exposed to some type of chemical nerve agents, and that maybe that there was a correlation between that and the sleep deaths, maybe with like the effects of nerve gas on human biology. So much so that even a senator in Iowa, Jim Leach, he called for a federal inquiry into the matter and to see if there was any correlation. But Prendergast wasn't really convinced by those theories.
I mean, I don't think it would make sense either. I mean, I feel like anybody would have some kind of reaction to a chemical.
Yeah. Especially after, this stuff happened in the 70s, but they were dying like 5 years later. So, like, that nerve gas must have been working in their system for 5 years. And I find that a little bit hard to believe just because I don't think that stays in your system for that long.
Yeah.
But Prendergast was actually theorizing that he thought these, he was saying that men had died in their sleep for centuries, but this was just one of the first times that this kind of stuff had been reported in the West. Usually it was something that was either not reported at all in the West or usually happened in the East. So there's a possibility that that happens, but at the same time, there's no actual explanation as to why. It's just like, oh, it's been happening, but like, tell me why.
Yeah. There's nothing but a heartache.
Tell me why.
Sorry. No, when you said tell me why, ain't nothing but a heartache. Sorry, guys, I'm really weird. Sorry. You're gonna know that real quick. Anyway.
So moving on, there was actually one survivor of this. It was a Hmong refugee living in Seattle, and he was rushed to the hospital with a weak heart. He did make a full recovery. He endured many tests, and funny enough, it was seen on his electrocardiogram pattern that he had suffered something similar to a heart attack. Like, it wasn't the same signs for a heart attack, but it was something similar.
Tachycardia?
Might have been something like that. The big hypothesis that was placed forward for it was that it was a heart attack is usually fluctuations in a heart rhythm, but in this case, the fluctuations were so small that, they were so small that after the person died, they wouldn't leave any lasting damage, and they actually wouldn't show up in an autopsy. That's why it was so hard to determine any cause of death. Because even when they tested the heart and and that kind of stuff, they couldn't find anything.
That's really weird, though.
Yeah. So the phenomenon itself was actually named nocturnal death syndrome in the U.S. And strangely enough, a lot of Southeast Asian refugees were reporting that a lot of these cases have been happening in their villages for many years.
Oh man, so it was common over there, but
Yeah.
like not in the U.S. That's kind of interesting.
So as of July of 1983, 72 deaths have been reported in the U.S. I digged into it a little bit deeper, but so far I couldn't find if any more deaths have been reported since that time. Maybe because of like spotty record keeping, or just it's just not on the internet that I could find.
Yeah.
But as of today, it is considered a medical disorder, and it's something that to which Southeast Asian men are genetically predisposed.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Well, I know this sounded very depressing, and it sounded more like a history lesson rather than a horror story. I mean, it is a horror story.
Yeah,
but
because it's
like,
still horrible things that are happening, but it's not really like, it's like, oh, it's about the serial killer, or oh, it's about this like set of ghosts or something like that.
Yeah.
But it did serve as the inspiration for one of the most famous slasher movies of the 80s, and I'll give you guys 5 seconds to try and guess.
Do, 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 and
It-
is...
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, so as you guys know that even though the Nightmare on Elm Street slasher is a little bit more on the creepy pedophile side, sadly, but I mean it's all for a good cause rather than we're all trying to kill Freddy, especially with basically him trying to kill us in our dreams.
Yeah, and in several interviews with Wes Craven at the time when he was being interviewed about his inspiration for the film, he would talk about this stuff that he read in articles about the nocturnal death syndrome. He was also inspired by this encounter that he had with a gentleman when he was a young boy, where he was looking out his window and he saw a man standing in front of his house just staring at it. And when he went downstairs to look through the peephole, he noticed that the man was just, by the time that he had walked down, the man had just walked in front of the house and he was standing in front of their door. But then, just like that, he walked away. And for some reason, that just that sort of thing just stay with Wes Craven all throughout his life. And another big inspiration he had too was that he had a childhood bully whose name happened to be Fred Krueger.
Dang.
Yeah, but another thing too that he took inspiration from, and this is something that I found out later on, that's why I didn't put it on the research that I did here, but when he looked at some more into this nocturnal death syndrome, he did find that part of the superstitious beliefs of Southeast Asian people revolved around demons in your sleep, which is how they kind of explain night terrors. They believe
Sleep
that
paralysis.
well, it's a little bit different because night terrors is when your body or your mind is awake but your body's still asleep, which is when people aren't able to move.
That's sleep paralysis.
Well, no, there's a little bit more to it because no, that is sleep paralysis. Never mind. Night terrors is something completely different. I'm sorry.
Oh man, this is great. I love this. I love
It's about
proving it
time.
wrong.
It's about time this happened to me now.
Yeah, boy. But, sorry, I really like it when I'm right. Continue.
But yeah, a lot of people in Southeast Asia believe that when you couldn't move because of the sleep paralysis, it's because a demon was standing on you, and he was looking down on you. That's why you couldn't move. And a lot of people that described the hallucinations that they experienced during sleep paralysis a lot of them would mention seeing a demon. So that's where a lot of people got the idea from that.
Yeah, we all love the memes, especially when it's like, hey, demons, it's your boy. Like, yeah, so it is actually based off Nightmare on Elm Street. So that was a very interesting and sad backstory, but now you guys know. So we are now going to go into another story, and hopefully you guys will get it, or, but this is a very famous cursed movie, I would like to call it.
Yes.
And it's a cursed movie in a sense that a lot of deaths have happened in this movie, but also that it is famous for that. But let me tell you guys of the story. So the next story will focus on the Herman family from Long Island. The head of the family, James Herman, was a former Marine and worked for the Air France. And
he worked for Air France. It was a airline that traveled to France.
Oh, dang. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been to Europe.
Neither have I.
Things that I need in my bucket list. So he was also a auxiliary police officer for his community. So his wife, Lucille, was a former head nurse for the St. Luke's Hospital in Manhattan and was now a housewife. They had 2 children, Lucy and Jimmy.
Which I think is like the weirdest thing, because like their names were already James and Lucille, so they were like, let's name our kids Jimmy and Lucy.
Yep, I mean...
Why not?
Yeah, I never realized until now that people who are named James, they like to derive their name to Jimmy, and I'm like, where? I feel like a Jim, sure, but why Jimmy when there's clearly an A in your name?
Listen,
like,
it's like the name James is like a Pokemon evolution, because you start off as Jimmy, then when you're like a teenager you go to Jim, and then when you're an adult you go by James. It's like you're a Pokemon, you evolve.
Just awful.
I know.
Whatever. Shut up. Anyway, so the loving family lived in a 3-bedroom home, which was located 4 miles from the famous 112 Ocean Avenue, which is where Amityville's house was located. And the family had lived there for 5 years with no problem, and that all changed on February 3rd on 1958. Lucille and the children were home relaxing when they suddenly heard popping noises in a quick succession all around the room.
Pop, pop.
Oh, first of all, you scared me in a bit just now when you did that. I'm like, why is you being loud like this? I don't understand. So I scare very easily.
I'm doing it for effect.
Yes, Well, first of all, you're awful at it, and second of all, I scare very easily. But I love horror. It's the adrenaline rush that I get high off of. But anyway, getting back to the story, when the family went to investigate, they all found out that all the bottles throughout the house had been opened, or the caps exploded. Heat, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
So this included shampoo bottles, bleach bottles, and even wine bottles. Hey, don't waste the wine now. Come on.
Come on, really? Like it's wine. Don't mess with wine.
Well, at least for me, I like wine. So Lucille called her husband at work to explain what had happened, and James reasoned that since no one had been hurt, that he would go to investigate the matter himself when he gets home. And the same incidents happened for the next 3 days at the same exact time. So it was not until February 7th that James witnessed the events firsthand. James found a bottle of holy water spilling on his bedroom floor. First of all, who had the holy water?
Right? How do you have a bottle of holy water on
I
you?
was like, first of all, who gave it to you? Second of all, I don't think you're holy enough to even have that. Shit's gonna happen in your house too. What the fuck?
Yeah, like of all things
I
to
named three,
have.
sorry.
Listen, it was just a bottle of Aquafina. He just thinks it's holy water.
At least it's not Dasani.
No,
Dasani.
Dasani. Yeah, I was about to say Dasani's demon water.
As well as the bottle caps from the turpentine
Yeah, turpentine.
and starch. 45 minutes later, he was talking to his son in the bathroom, and he witnessed two bottles in the sink move in two different directions by themselves.
Dun dun dun.
And now, as his puzzled wife and him, James made a call to Nassau County Police. The police arrived at the house and was interviewing the family, but he was also interrupted by the popping noises throughout the house. So apparently this ghost really liked bottles and popping noises because damn, he is annoying. So the officer went to investigate again and noticed the bottles in the sink had moved and were now on the floor. Wow. So we can't just say that they rolled over.
They were like, I'm looking for the Listerine. Where the hell is damn Listerine?
Listerine. They just, those ghosts don't know what they want. So during the next few days, the popping activity grew more intense and more extreme. A detective was assigned to the family's case, and on that same day, a perfume bottle flung itself across Lucy's room. What is up with the bottles? I don't understand.
Girl, why did you buy
Axe? In the
Axe?
eyes, like a blizzard.
So you're like,
G6,
oh
like
my
a
god.
G6.
I haven't heard that song in years.
That's the song.
I know, I'm just saying I haven't heard it in a long ass time. But I'm over here.
Bottoms up. Let me see you
oh my god. I'm over here thinking it was. I'm over here thinking it was just a bottle of Axe. And it's just like what are you a douchebag? No.
Axe are for dicks. Well, I mean, no. Technically, no. Anyway, so the detective sent some of the fallen bottles for analysis to a police laboratory in New York. Later on, James' cousin came to visit. She sat with the children in the living room when they saw a small statue on the coffee table shake, then fly up and land on the rug nearby.
At least he was nice enough to throw it on the rug and not just throw it on the floor and break it.
Well,
So
the first time that there's no bottles, I guess they got sick of the bottles this time.
they're like, I'm done with these bottles. I'm gonna put this stupid statue over here.
Apparently, at that point, that's a little kid just trying to cause some mayhem. A little kid ghost is what I'm saying.
Little kid ghost.
So the news of the supernatural occurrences soon reached the New York papers and then was wired to media outlets across the country. The media flocked to the residence to interview this family and attempted to witness the supernatural events. Oh, okay, let's just provoke these demons, why don't we? Let's just go with the flow, man.
As one tends to do.
Several days later, the detective that had been assigned to the family's case was with the parents and Lucy in the basement when they heard a loud crash. They went to investigate and they found a broken porcelain figure in the empty living room. Yikes. Porcelain dolls are expensive, so
They are. Yeah, that ghost was like, fuck this doll.
Things got more intense on February 25th when a plaster statue of a Virgin Mary soared across the room and smashed into a mirror frame. I guess that's what happens when you just keep holy water. You pissed off the ghost, and now it wants you to get rid of that one bottle of holy water you have in the house. Good job. So many people and experts came to the residence to try and find a scientific explanation for the events the family was experiencing, but they were unable to find anything.
I love this. When I was doing the research on this, I didn't put them on here just because I wanted to kind of go off the cuff on them. But one of the stories that that the family was experiencing, they had at one point they just had so many visitors that when people just came to the house, they were just like, yeah, just come on in, whatever, we don't care anymore. And at one point, they had this one guy by himself just walk into the house. He looks around all the rooms, goes to their living room, just kneels down, starts screaming his head off, and then gets up as if nothing happened, goes to the family, and he says, "You have been forgiven," and then just walked out.
Oh. What? I'm...
That's like the funniest thing. I can just imagine some just random guy walking into your house, screaming, walking like his, walking out as if nothing happened, just being like, "You've been forgiven.
Right,
You're good.
bye. You're
See
good.
you guys."
That's
And he's just like super satisfied. He like does that whole thing where he like claps his hands and just like rubs them. He's like, "Well, my work here is done. See you guys."
Gross. Stop. Anyway, the other investigators that went to the home were Dr. Gaither Pratt and William Roll of Duke's University Parapsychology Lab. That's a really big word.
Parapsychology.
Anyway, so the first thing they did was to point out any inaccuracies and inconsistency that the detectives' reports regarding any eyewitness accounts. They also noted that Jimmy had been present more than 80% of the occurrences and wondered if perhaps he was emitting some sort of psychic energy.
I love this.
Oh, God. The family was still receiving many phone calls and letters a day. Many of the phone calls suggested that the family was being plagued by a ghostly spirit prankster. Wow, that's some kind of prankster, let me tell you that. And strangely enough, while the parapsychologists were staying at the family's home, no activity was reported. Wow.
Yeah. So how convenient.
How convenient, So Pratt and Roll concluded that the influx of reporters and visitors had disturbed the psychological atmosphere, and now they have returned to North Carolina, and just 2 days later, the paranormal and the supernatural occurrences resumed. So they were just waiting for their little visitors so they can still parade around that house and, cause disturbances, because the family's just super lucky, right? And even stranger, the supernatural activity randomly stopped just a week later and they never occurred again.
Yeah, so
What?
it was like a series of like just random things where bottle caps were popping off of bottles, statues were being thrown across rooms and breaking things. And then they're like, "Okay, we're done. We did what we wanted to do. We're good."
It's like, yeah, just, chill.
It's like, "Oh, you guys are so boring. Let's go somewhere else."
That's why they probably escaped to the Amityville house instead. They're like, "Oh, let's go fuck
This-
up some shit over there."
This looks like so much more fun.
Anyway, so the whole case was a media frenzy and it led to many experts trying to share their thoughts on the subject. Many were debunking the cases as Jimmy was trying to get attention. What takes it a step further is the fact that his parents refused to take the polygraph test and would not allow certain people to try and prove the cases were not supernatural to enter the house.
Yeah, so it's a little suspect because maybe they like knew what was going on and they were just trying to get attention.
Yeah.
And they were like, "We can be famous."
This is very anticlimactic, not gonna lie to you.
Really?
Anyway, so I mean, it's just the fact that, there was no priest, there was no nothing, there was just, let me just throw a tantrum and then that's it, I'm done. You know?
Yeah, they're
We're
like,
gonna take it out to Amity, so like fuck y'all. So apparently, maybe the whole neighborhood was haunted. Who knows?
that's
At
possible.
that point. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 seconds for you guys to figure out what movie this is, or this is the story that inspired the movie. So 5, 4, 3, 2. Yusuf, you want to say?
I'll let you take care of this one, actually.
Why? Anyway, because it's anticlimactic, and I'm kind of bummed out that this is actually the origin story, but whatever. It is Poltergeist. This house has been cleansed or cleaned. I forgot which one it actually was. So it is Poltergeist, which surprises me that I never knew that the house was a couple of blocks away from Amity.
Yeah, I didn't know that either
so-
until I did the research on this. I was like, wow, that's strange.
Yeah, and the fact that I feel like the entire neighborhood is haunted now because of that, but but the movie is also very much cursed because there have been a few deaths that have happened on set, especially like each and every movie there was at least a death of some sort in any way, whether it be natural or a murder. There was a lot of things that were happening within the set of shooting this movie.
Yeah, not to mention the weird story that I still can't remember if it's true or not, that scene in the pool when they're being covered in skeletons. They apparently said that those were real skeletons. Like, they're not like rubber or plastic skeletons. They were real skeletons that they borrowed from medical centers and universities.
Yep. So, I mean, that could also explain a lot why those things happen. I mean, it's unfortunate because the actors didn't need to suffer that, or
Exactly.
the production crew. But you live and you learn, and hopefully, no other horror film did that ever again. I hope.
Hmm.
What do you mean?
I'm sure, because I'm sure there's been plenty of horror films that have done that kind of stuff already.
If you guys know which horror film has done that other than Poltergeist, please leave us a comment below. We would like to look into this.
Yeah, because that kind of stuff is interesting. I'm like, why subject your actors and your crew to this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I agree. So that was all we have
Yeah.
for today. That was a lot of content, honestly, and a lot of story time and exciting news and stuff. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
So if you guys have listened to us all the way through, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Where can we find us, Yusuf?
So we are on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and we are also, this is our first ever episode that's going to be up on YouTube. But I will also be posting the previous podcast episodes just so anybody that wants to listen to them on YouTube has the option to go through all the episodes that way. But you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Sounds from the Grave. And you can also find my personal Twitter at Yusuf Sabat1 and my Instagram at Yusuf1220.
So I am on Twitter as HHN Cultist, and also on YouTube as HHN Cultist as well. If you guys like vlogs and makeup tutorials or just makeup looks in general to spice up your Universal or Halloween Horror Nights or haunt season, go and check me out there. So that is all we have for you guys today.
Yeah, and we hope to see you soon in the next episode. We were having a couple of issues when it came to video, mostly because I just got a new computer and I need to buy a webcam and all that stuff. So
We had so many technical difficulties
yes,
today. So many.
yeah, we did. We were not happy campers for a while there, but we managed to soldier through. We got it done, because you guys deserve this content. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for liking us and tolerating our weirdness. Especially when most of us stutter. Mostly talking about me, but hey. So I'm gonna go to bed, guys. Bye.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later, and hashtag Steve Cream. Bye.